All right, well, I think we're just about ready to begin here. Welcome to all of our attendees, and thank you for joining us for this webinar presented by Folk Alliance International. It's the first in our community online series, and we're happy to be able to connect with you in this way. There's just a few things we need to cover before we start the webinar today. So when you opened the webinar, a control panel should have appeared on your screen. The link to access closed captioning is in the chat box at the top of that little control panel. But we also have a link to access our closed captioning link. It's in our handouts, and you're able to access those on the screen that is currently being displayed to you. And then you can hide the control panel if you wish with the little orange arrow. And if you'd like to submit questions for consideration, you can use the questions menu in the control panel. And we will be taking questions during the webinar, but mostly we'll be answering questions submitted in advance via the little survey that our registrants filled out. From the hundreds of questions that were submitted, our panelists have chosen some of the most frequently asked to address today. And there were a whole bunch of questions in there about live streaming, how to do it, what's the best platform. And I'm delighted to tell you that next Friday we'll be presenting a live streaming specific panel for you. When you close this webinar today, a short survey will appear, and we would greatly appreciate any and all feedback. So please do consider taking a moment to complete the survey. All right, let's get started. It's time to introduce our moderator. So I hope you will join me in welcoming Folk Alliance International Board Vice President Matt Sever, who is also very well known to the Folk Alliance International community as Matt the Electrician, beloved artist. He'll be posing questions to our other panelists, and we'd like to welcome him now. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Tressa. How are you doing? Thanks.
I'm good. You go ahead.
All righty. All right. Well, so were you still going to do the poll, Tressa?
Oh, yes. I am so sorry. My bad.
That's right.
I was reading my script and I wasn't looking at the agenda. So we just have a quick poll for you to fill out, attendees, and it is, what is your industry role? And this is going to help our panelists today to respond directly to you. So Jared's just going to put that up, and we're going to ask you to select one of the following roles: artist, talent booker, media, industry, or arts organization. We'll just take a quick minute to fill that out. And then we'll post the results for you to see. Thanks for that reminder, Matt.
Of course.
We're all learning as we go here.
That's right.
Just a couple of seconds for that poll to people to finish answering, and then we'll post the results for you. All right, we have a very even split between artists, talent bookers, and arts organizations, which means that we'll be speaking pretty broadly to a group of folks, and we do have panelists who represent a couple of those categories. So Matt, without any further ado, we will put up our agenda and I'll pass it over to you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure you can hear me. Yeah, okay, I've got all that set. Like everybody else, I'm learning as I go with all of this. So we're going to start today. We have some great panelists from different areas of expertise, and we're going to start today with Jennifer Neff. So first of all, I'd just like to introduce everybody to Jennifer Neff. Jennifer, how you doing?
Hi, it's Leff. Just I know it's a typo, It's okay, but it's Jennifer Leff. I'm with MusiCares.
You are with MusiCares.
MusiCares, and MusiCares is the charity of the Recording Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems as though both of those organizations have gotten out pretty quick at the front of this and started trying to figure out ways to help the artist communities.
Yes.
So that's fantastic. All right, well, I'm going to ask you some questions, Jennifer, and I think the first one, and I know a lot of artists are looking for this on their own, but do you have specific links to share that for resources and mental health, just ways to kind of remain positive and stress-free during this time that we're in?
So I'm not, I'm not sure that stress-free is the accurate description, because I think it is a really stressful time and it's an unprecedented time. There's a lot of unknown. It's triggering our anxiety, our depression. There's trauma involved. And since we know everybody is reacting differently to this, I think the first thing, and it's not a link or a resource, but you have to call upon yourself just to say, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and acknowledge it. And it sounds easier than done, I think. One website that I have found incredibly helpful is Mental Health America. And it has a wide scope of resources and information around coping. There's a toolbox. It has certain demographics, so around eating disorders, around chronic mental illness. So anything that somebody might experience personally, there's going to be some education and information, which I think is going to provide a little more sense of control within one's locus. There's so many lists and websites popping up. I think Headspace is a great, it's a great option. They're providing some free services. And Vibrant, which is out of New York City, but it is for the masses. It is an incredible resource. It's easy, it's accessible, it's interactive. And I think the Mental Health America and Vibrant are the first two that I would go to. And I think, again, kind of going back to oneself, in terms of stress-free, I think we have to think about limiting our stress. And I know for me, like, I won't read the New York Times anymore. Anything, if I hear Trump's voice, I will not listen to it. It just gets me going. So I know I have to just set my limits. And I think people really need to be aware of setting boundaries for themselves. And anything that you would do normally to relieve stress, do it 4 times as much now. That's what we have to do. We have to kind of pull the resources within ourselves and connect with other people in order to see what else is out there that can help.
Great. Well, that leads into my next question, which you started to answer already. But are there any other organizations that you're aware of, maybe nationwide, aside from MusiCares, that are helping artists directly?
Yes. So Actors Fund is one that's going to help the entertainment community. There's the Jazz Foundation. I think right now the best resource somebody can go to is on Billboard. And they have a list of resources that is provided by state. And it's around specific grant assistance for the music community, mental health, local government information, and it's all in one place, which is really helpful. So that would be my first thing, because there are so many out there. And I know specific to the folk community, Actors Fund is going to help, certainly, but go to Billboard, because there are certain regional organizations that also might be able to provide some assistance.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. I know that there is a concern that people who were already in volatile or unsafe situations or relationships are obviously maybe experiencing more problematic lifestyles than usual and are feeling maybe more isolated. Are there any specific resources outside of regular law enforcement to keep people safe at this time?
So I think even though I say I stopped reading the paper, obviously I haven't, because there's some things I will read. It seems like every day there's a new article around how there is an increase in domestic violence. with increased stress, and certainly with the lockdowns and self-quarantines, survivors can't get out of these difficult situations. I did send along a list of resources. We've seen I think about a 75% increase on Google in terms of looking for domestic violence resources. I think what people need to know is that it's real. People want to be heard. We're here to listen to them, but there are specific resources. If you go to domestic violence hotlines, you can get that information. And Teresa will send that on. There's about 7, so I can't give every single one.
Yeah.
And I think the other key is for somebody who needs assistance or support, designate somebody on a daily basis that you can reach out to. Make a plan with yourself that, hey, I'm going to reach out to this person on a daily basis just so they know where I am and how I'm doing.
Right. Well, and that leads into my last question for you, Jennifer. I know for myself and a lot of my friends who feel like they're doing relatively okay, we're very concerned with our friends that are prone to depression, and kind of if there are things we can do for people, because I feel like in normal times we would go visit them. We would, try to get close with people, and that's obviously not something we can do right now. So do you have any, tidbits, not necessarily even resources, but just advice for ways to help somebody that's prone to that?
I think especially now, we all need to be very aware of connecting with others. So if you know of somebody who is particularly struggling, maybe due to pre-existing mental illness or depression or anxiety, reach out to them. Don't wait for them to contact you. This is not unlike any other time where we would say, hey, I'm concerned about this person. I'm going to text them. I'm going to call them, because you can't always go over to them. I think that for the person who needs assistance, let somebody know. It's okay. This is not a time to kind of muster up our own, I can handle this. This is a really tough time. Everybody feels isolated on some level. And so for people who are struggling with depression, that's only magnified. So please reach out to your friends, reach out to somebody, let them know that you're thinking of them. I think that's the first thing. Let people know you're thinking of them, even though everybody has their own stuff going on. Right. Again, sounds easy to do, but when we're all wrapped up in our own lives, it's not so easy. I think now, make a point of connecting with people.
Agreed. Thank you, Jennifer Leff, so much, and thank you to MusiCares for everything you guys are stepping up and doing right now.
Can I just add one more thing? I'm so sorry. In terms of the connection piece, there is a slide. We are doing cyber support groups.
Okay. Yeah, I think we saw one of, yeah.
And so, that's just one other way for people to connect to others in the industry. Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you again, Jennifer. I'd like to introduce the second member of our panel, Rose Cousins. How you doing, Rose?
Good.
Good. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Good. So you're going to help us with personal strategies for keeping healthy. And I know from watching your Instagram over the years that you challenge yourself. I've seen you plank, for instance. So I know I know you have some skills. Do you have any recommendations of resources, maybe podcasts, apps, books, magazines, for kind of cultivating that balance and the inspiration for keeping healthy?
I know that Jennifer mentioned Headspace, and that was where I kind of got my meditation started. It's really easy. You could do a 5-minute, you could do a 10-minute, and meditation is one of the things that's been a big block for me. I'm just like, I don't have time. It seems like a waste of time. I'm not, but I dedicated myself to it beginning of February, because February was my biggest month. I put a record out and I was like, I need to brace. So I definitely think it's like the things that I think about of right now is self-care. Like I live by myself, and so I'm used to self-isolation, but also it's easy to let time become very unstructured. And I think for me, and my advice to anyone would be to have like 4 key points that you do each day, or like things that you're doing to benefit yourself, to give what I call your future self a gift. That's kind of how I started. I was on tour like 10 years ago, and I remember I was miserable and very low, and like I just need to do something right now for my future self. So that's kind of how I look at it. And so I feel like making deposits in some kind of stillness, whether it's a formal meditation or a guided one or just sitting, some form of exercise, and that exercise can be paired. It can be walking outside, or it could be walking outside and something else, but walking outside should be one of them. So I feel like some kind of stillness, some form of exercise, definitely walking outside, some kind of reading, and some kind of play. So for us, maybe that's playing music if that's a source of comfort. Maybe it's TV. Maybe it's, I don't really know. We're lucky that it's springtime and that the weather is warming up, and that kind of helps bring positivity. But I really feel like self-care is something that people don't prioritize. So many things that Jennifer said were resonating so much. But I think the world has slowed down so much, and the excuses that we use to not self-care. Like, I think we just have to be extremely kind to ourselves and make deposits in ourselves, in those kind of key things that will keep us grounded and rooted. And exercise puts good serotonin into our bodies, and it makes our future tomorrow self better and fitter. It makes us sleep better. So I think, and like eating healthy, like there's more time to be thoughtful right now. If we're lucky to be, I feel very lucky to be able to be home, and that that stillness is not too scary for me. But other things I've been doing is I've been listening and watching to Brene Brown and Oprah's Soul Talks, Super Soul stuff. Like, these are people who talk about hard things, but shed light in a really great way.
Yeah.
And I think talking to friends and having empathy is probably the biggest source of comfort. It's kind of like, yeah, same, me too. Or what are you doing to whatever? Also, I think Jennifer said, but I have 2 people. There's probably 4, but 2 people that I don't let a day go by that I check in on. They're in my pod, and 2 girlfriends of mine, and sending voice notes back and forth, just of like the things you're doing in the day, but to have a couple of check-in buddies, to know that someone's thinking about you and checking in on you. Yeah, and to look at this space, I feel all those things that you're making a deposit for yourself is going to help quell any panic that might be rising and stress. Like, it's going to help make a contribution towards making you feel like you're being productive, you're taking care of yourself. And also, this could be viewed as a time, if you have time now, since a lot of us have lost our work. I've got 3 months that was going to be for touring. That's not happening now. And also, I don't know what the summer's going to be. So it's possible that it's 5 months. And I'm always wishing that I had more time to write or more time to do projects and things. And 2 weeks ago, I retaught myself how to start to use Logic, the computer program, to do recording, which I've always wanted to do. But there are ways to fill time in a productive way. And the plankuary thing that I did, where I planked every day in January and February, you know, the people are saying that it's 21 days to form a new habit, that you could choose one thing. And it's cool to do an exercise thing because you can see the progress that you make. I did planking, you could do push-ups, you could do sit-ups, but you do one thing consistently every day. Is, for me, it really became an anchor to get to pass time, but also to be like, I'm actually doing something for myself.
Yeah. Well, real quick, let me ask you one more question, and that kind of branches off of what you were just saying. I know a lot of the artist and songwriter friends have had different relationships with this time in terms of creativity. Personally, I've been creating a lot and learning new and different things. Are you writing and playing and recording at this time? And are you feeling like it's a positive creative thing, or are you feeling like you need more kind of quiet time and stepping away from creating as an artist right now?
I am someone who kind of, I mean, this to me is an opportunity to move more with a flow of conscience. I haven't written any Rose Cousins songs. I did 3 co-writes. I was kind of forced myself to learn how to use Logic again because I did some co-writes just like this on a video thing. You know, sending tracks back and forth with a couple people, and that was an interesting thing. I feel like I don't feel panicked about using the time to write, but I do feel that it's important not to panic about what you should be doing and how much. For me, I'm definitely a workaholic. I have lots of things to catch up on because I literally had to go from Mach speed to 0 speed on a CD release because my record literally just came out. Right. So, but I do feel like those of us who are here we are, we're the most creative people, and this is an amazing time to take time and think of ideas. Like, think of how you want to participate in what's happening. You know, how can you make the things that you're doing as a creative person thoughtful? What things can you share that could be helpful to other people? Not just creating content and clogging the airways, but figuring out what is good for you, and then if you want to share something, how it could be like a concentrated form of something that could help.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you so much, Rose, for answering questions for us. That's a really that's a nice point that I've been thinking a lot about too. Is it's not just about writing. I don't have to write a song. There's a lot of just you know, time to think. I'm going to go ahead and welcome our next guest, and we have Amanda Power, who is here to help us with some questions about advocacy and music industry initiatives. And so I'm just going to dive right in, Amanda. What organizations that you know of are helping artists in Canada, and how do the artists up there go about accessing those?
Yeah, hi Matt. Thanks for having me. So I work with an organization called the Unison Benevolent Fund, and we help really everybody who works in the Canadian music industry with counseling services and financial assistance. So we are, I would say, probably one of the largest national resources that's available here in Canada. Our counseling services are very simple. You just call the 1-855 number and you get the help that you require. The financial assistance, visit our website, which is unisonfund.ca, and go through the process, the application. It's very simple, very straightforward, and then we will help you with the resources to make sure you can, you know, stay in your home and put food on your table and et cetera. Other resources up here in Canada, I think every provincial organization, I think, is starting to do their own thing. And I know every city is having their own music fund. Like, a lot of them are trying to do their own music funds. So for example, the Hamilton Music Industry Organization, they're doing one. The City of Toronto is doing something to help the musicians in the City of Toronto. So I think that's catching on across our country. And there's also the other organizations such as CIMA, the Canadian Independent Music Organization, Factor. They're all trying to help as well, including, oh gosh, there's so many of them up here in Canada, and everybody's trying to do their part. I think rather than trying to list them all off, if you go to our website, we're trying to keep an updated resource list that people can access and really try to follow along with that.
And what's that website?
unisonfund.ca.
Okay. I think I speak for all songwriters and artists in the States when I ask, when can we move to Canada? How many of us are allowed? Okay. Well, are there any resources available for non-artist members of the industry?
Yeah, again, Unison is for everybody in music, not just those that are on stage. So if you're, you know, if you're a sound guy, a tech guy, you know, you do the rigging, you're the producer, the publisher, whatever
managers as well.
we're here to help you at Unison.
That's fantastic. And do you have any outside of your own organization? Do you have any go-to resource sites that you utilize?
Yeah, there's a lot of great creative groups up here in Canada, depending on which part of the arts industry you work in. There's the Actors Fund up here. There's PAL for senior members of our industry. Again, those resource links are on the Unison website. We're really just trying to keep up with everything that's coming out so quickly. As I'm sure down in the US, it's just constant flow of information and trying to keep up with it. So every 24 hours, we're trying to update that website and make sure that everybody's got the links that they need to get through the situation.
Right. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for the work that y'all do, and yeah, I wish we had such things like that down in the States. And we do have some. There's some local things, and there are some national things. And I don't think we have anybody speaking about that stuff specifically today, but I'm sure that's coming up on future webinars. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say that for those down in the US, definitely reach out. I know before we started this, I was chatting with Jennifer, and of course, Unison is always looked up to MusiCares to learn how they handle things and what they do, so we can do that up here in Canada as well. So I just want to say thank you to MusiCares in the US for all that they're doing to help our brothers and sisters down there. So
absolutely.
Thanks.
All righty. I would like to introduce the next panelist we have up here, Dave Sherman. How you doing, Dave?
Hello.
Hello. And I think we're gonna talk to you about sobriety and recovery. And I know that's something that I'm sure is also becoming more difficult in these times. I myself am sober 16 years, and I don't have a whole lot of resources, so I'm glad that you're here. What are some of the best ways that you're finding to access recovery support online right now? Because I know a lot of this has moved online.
Yeah, very, very quickly. Almost overnight, it was pretty remarkable because, like Jennifer was saying, connection with people that get you is so important to mental health and sobriety. And if you have any access to 12-step meetings at all, they all moved to Zoom almost immediately. It was really pretty remarkable how it happened. So Google is your friend. If you type in AA or NA and the name of the city you're in and meetings, you will get a pretty comprehensive list of just about all the local meetings, but literally all of those websites will now have Zoom connections on them.
Wow.
And if you're in a different time zone, you can find something earlier. The great thing is you're no longer geographically limited to finding recovery support. And yeah, really, people that are just technophobes, it just went overnight. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I had also heard from a friend who is in the program that he was actually initially kind of jazzed because he could go to a meeting in France.
Totally. Yeah.
Which
is pretty cool.
I actually found that kind of fun.
It's weird.
So do you have any advice for how people who have family members or friends that are struggling with addiction while they're physically distant from one another, ways that they can be helpful, kind of outside of the realm of the 12-step programs and the online stuff? Are there other tools that that you're aware of that of those with struggling with addiction can utilize?
I think the number one thing when dealing with an addict or an alcoholic is making sure you check in with yourself and you're leading a balanced life, because it's so easy to be reactive to someone that's an alcoholic or an addict when they're using. And then you can make the situation worse. You can try to confront them at the wrong time or take your issues out on them. So Al-Anon also, you can get on Zoom. It's a great resource for people that are dealing with someone that's a loved one. And, you know, check in with somebody you know and make sure you're on firm spiritual footing or you know, emotional health footing in terms of, you know, being objective to how they're acting. Because alcoholics and addicts tend to be pretty crazy when they're drinking.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of add, Dave? Any other, you know, words of advice from your own experience?
Yeah, and I'm also sober since '99, and you know, that sense of connection, you really do need to connect with your people. And there's never been a better time to be stuck inside in a global pandemic and still be able to connect. So you really don't have any excuses. And I also want to, Rose, once you've got the sobriety piece in place, getting balance, like getting outside at least once a day, eating right. You know, it's very easy to kind of get down on yourself and get inside your head. And I love what Jen said about just acknowledging that, you know, I think a lot of people are concerned about, well, you know, I'm not working and finances are getting thin and I can't eat the snacks I like. And all of which is perfectly valid reasons to be freaked out because there's a global pandemic going on. Like, this is terrifying. So let's all just acknowledge that. That's pretty scary. And then don't let it consume you, you know, and then get on with your day. I mean, it seems to me that, you know, I'm getting, my phone rings a lot these days, and it's going to, you know, like that first week, everybody was completely insane. And then the second week, people started finding their rhythm and like, okay, I'm going to be able to get through this. And then the third week, it's back to, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck inside my house forever. Yeah. And you just gotta kind of keep reminding yourself that this too shall pass. We're going to get through this. Take it in bite-sized chunks, you know, just like in recovery, take it one day at a time, you know, just make it to midnight. They're not asking us to go to war. They're asking us to stay home and watch Netflix. Like, I can do that. Like, I'm really okay with this plan, you know? I have a backyard where I garden. I just transplanted some daylilies and some peppers out into the garden and, you know, just trying to stay busy with stuff I'd be doing. It's spring out. Today it's going to be 72. I'm outside of Philly. So it's like, things could be a lot worse.
Yeah. Without minimizing the difficult time that some people are going through, I have felt that kind of dealing with recovery has actually made it a little easier for me because I do look at things in one-day chunks generally. So it's felt easier to kind of be here now, as it were.
It's almost like we were prepping for this.
Right.
We were isolating. We're one day at a time. Yeah, I was born for this.
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that. Well, I'm gonna thank you, Dave, so much.
Thanks for having me
being here and for participating. I'm going to jump into what is apparently my section, and I'm speaking on connecting folk and fostering community. And so I'm going to go ahead and question myself. Is what I'm going to do, which is what we're all doing, really. I personally, as a songwriter, as a performer, like most of the rest of us, everything was canceled, and then immediately I, you know, looked for ways to kind of get online and play, and that has been that's been fairly successful for me, just in terms of have interaction and also feeling like I'm providing a service to the people that appreciate what I do. And so the question that was posed about this is that a lot of us are asking for donations in different ways. Maybe there's ticket sales through things like Stage It. There's just putting your PayPal or your Venmo. And the question is, are there any kind of cool ways that I've seen artists finding ways to not only collect tips for themselves, but to help others? And this is something that I've thought a lot about because I've watched a lot of my friends. I've seen different people kind of doing things differently, and I feel like it's going to keep evolving and keep changing. So I'm not making any grand declarations yet. But I talked to a friend yesterday in prep for this, who has been running a series of shows on Stage It. And when we got on the phone together, the very first thing she said was, she said, please understand that the bottom line for me right now is that I am approaching everybody with compassion. And ideally, maybe we all lead our lives like this all the time. But I know that I don't always when I should. And I think it's a very important point of the way that I'm approaching not only how I get online and interact with people, but the way that I kind of evaluate and judge the way other people are doing it. Because I don't know what other people's needs are. I don't know who has the money to pay the mortgage and who doesn't. I don't know who has emotional and mental needs, and maybe they miss being in front of a crowd more than I do, that sort of thing. So I have seen a lot of not only different ways to kind of go about that are only doing things for charity, and they're picking different charities every day or every couple days. And that's great. I also know people that are not in the position to do that. And I think it's okay to, if you need money, if you are in need of something, it's okay to ask your fan base or your supporters for that. And I don't think you need to feel guilty or worry about being judged because somebody else is doing theirs for charity, because not everybody's going to be able to do that. I have spent a lot of time personally also thinking about my team, my booking agent and my manager, realizing that they can't turn on their webcam and play a couple songs and make a couple $100. And they depended on all of us going out there and playing shows to get a commission off of that. And so far, I have not been in a position to collect money for them, but it's certainly something that is part of my thought process. And it's something that I feel like in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to kind of shift and start collecting money for different members of my team or perhaps even different charities. So for me, that's the cool thing, is that this is evolving. There's all sorts of tricks we can do as artists, and there's all sorts of different ways we can approach these shows we're doing. But I think it's important to remember that it's all evolving and that it's online. And so you don't have to make a poster for the next 3 months and commit to something, and that's the way it has to be. Like, part of the beauty of not having to show up at a specific club in Duluth on a Tuesday is you can wake up Monday and decide to do something different. So I think that's a superpower that we overlook sometimes during all of this. The second question from me was, did I have any thoughts or advice about managing the output so we don't oversaturate and stay relevant, sustainable, and helpful with our connections? And I'll just real quickly say again that my friend that I talked to, who was put together, and I'll go ahead and say her name because I don't think it's a secret, but Natalia Zuckerman and Kelly McCartney together put together weeks and weeks, if not, I think months at this point, of shows on Stage It. And Natalia's 100% focus was on sustaining community. I think Natalia, with her fan base, could have easily just played her own show every night and put her Venmo up and made a whole lot more money and done a lot less work and spent a lot less time. But she was very concerned with the community kind of coming apart. And she wanted to, she knew very well-known artists and lesser-known artists. And she wanted to create a system where everybody could benefit, the rising tide metaphor. And so, like, I think that after talking to her yesterday, she and I are both basically on the same page. And that is that I think if we're careful about being moderate in our approach to this, like in most other things, like in the way that we eat and exercise and kind of take care of ourselves, then this doesn't have to get oversaturated, and it doesn't have to go away, and it doesn't have to become a thing that becomes more problematic than positive. And so I would just urge artists to kind of pay attention to that when you're planning on what you're going to do. If you really need to play every day, then by all means do that, but be aware that there may be diminishing returns, and it might be better for your sanity as well as others to kind of.
Hey, Matt, I'm just going to interrupt you for a quick second, Teresa here, because Rose wanted to jump in on something that you had said in the earlier question. So
Sure.
maybe we'll throw it over to Rose for a second. Rose, are you good?
Yeah, Matt, I love everything you're saying, and I think the thing that Natalia did with the keeping the community going is amazing. I wanted to just mention one thing as you were breezing by. I had a couple of fans ask me if I had a tip jar, like a place. Basically my Boston show that was supposed to be tonight was canceled, and there was like an option for the Oberon in Boston was like, you can either ask them to, they can get a refund or they can send the money to you. Is there a link that you have to send? And I was like, I guess I can send money to PayPal. So then I went on to PayPal, and you can create a button.
Yep.
And you can call it whatever you want. So I literally went in, and it's under tools, and I created it. You can choose button. You can call it whatever you want, and then you can pull the URL to that button into your website, and or also share it when you're doing the live Insta streams or live Facebook streams, so that people do have an option. It's a non-obligatory thing, but it's at least you're giving your fans an option to donate, because there are those few people that we know that we have supporters that are just like, how do I get rid of this person? So that I just wanted to say that is, if whoever has PayPal, under tools, it's super easy to create a button and plop it into your website or Facebook or whatever. It's literally just a URL, and I just put it up last week and have had, it's like $20, $35, just a tip.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic idea. I did something similar a few weeks back. Actually, at Folk Alliance, heard somebody talking about it on a panel, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to do that.
So
we're gonna
Matt,
move on.
we have a live question.
Let's do it.
It's a two-parter, and I think it's a really interesting question because it sort of asks artists to utilize the creativity and resilience they have around unpredictable models of earning and unpredictable work. But it's what are ways that we can keep communities engaged and feeling connected to arts organizations and presenters. And there was another question that sort of linked into that, which was a lot of folks are talking about how to support artists, but the question is about how artists and folks who have relied on festivals and performing arts centers and venues, how we artists or fans or folks who enjoy those can support them. So I wonder if this is a good time to think about opening up to all of our panelists to potentially answer some of these questions. And then we have another couple of live questions. So maybe I'll throw this one to Matt to start with, and then maybe Rose, and then we'll see what our other questions are. Sound good?
Yeah, repeat the first of the two, sorry.
So the first question was, how do we keep communities engaged and feeling connected to organizations? And how do artists and fans and festival goers support those organizations through this time? It's a little less evident how to do that than it is to attend an online concert and drop $5 in a tip jar. So right. I think it's an interesting question for all of our panelists.
Yeah. I'll just start by quickly saying that my tidbit on that is that much like in politics or anything else, it's easy to get overwhelmed with the thought of, oh my God, there's so many organizations and so many festivals, and I can't even pay my rent, so how am I supposed to help them? I would suggest to artists, focus local. Focus on your festivals, or even if it's not geographically local, focus on the festivals that you play every year or that you attend, and just pick a couple and figure out how you can help them out. So if that's the Sisters Folk Festival or Folk Alliance International or the Philadelphia Folk Festival or whatever it is, or even if it's local venues, like kind of make it local, because you're going to make it easier on yourself, and you might actually have an impact if you direct it that way. Rose?
Yeah, I mean, my concert tonight is a perfect example because it's presented by Club Passim. I'm going to be doing it through my own YouTube channel, but they are promoting it and presenting it. And they are going to have their PayPal link at the bottom. And so it's going towards Club Passim, and part's going to come to me too. So it's got this dual situation. So I feel like that's a great way to do what you're saying, which is pick your local festival and pick your venue or whatever, and do like a split thing like this is. And it also, I feel like the thing that I love about that for me tonight is that it's like, it's not just a Rose Concerts concert. It's like a concert, but also I'm also putting the light in Club Passim, who's like taken care of me for years. And the same thing, venues and festivals that you're loyal to, I feel like you can do this kind of split thing, which I feel like feels so much better all the way around. So it's not just like, you know, me. It's like me, but also because of this. So I feel like that's like maybe an easy way to do that. I feel like you're right. Time for collaboration is right now. Local anything, venues, festivals, other artists.
Yeah.
I have another question that is submitted by someone who shall remain nameless, but who is another beloved artist in Folk Alliance world. And it's, what do you do on days when you just feel really sad and unmotivated? I'm an artist, and there are days when I feel good, and some when I just feel totally overwhelmed and flattened by everything going on. So I wonder if each panelist might take a minute to describe what they, like, I know it's a bit personal, but I did ask you beforehand if you were okay with getting personal, and everyone said yes. So what do each of you do when you're feeling sad and unmotivated, when you're having a bad day?
I'll start. I'll start because I just had one yesterday. I mean, I think I go through it actually every day, but there are certain periods throughout the day. I have 2 kids, trying to work and manage their school stuff, right? Plus everything else that's going on, and worrying about older parents and such. And I hit my wall. I lost it. I'm sure you guys all could have heard me screaming. Done. And I got really down on myself, and I thought, I need to. And then I stopped and I said, let it be. And it's exactly what Dave was saying. This is a global pandemic. There are no rights and wrongs. And I think if you're feeling crappy one day and you're feeling low, acknowledge it, let it be. I think that when I acknowledged it passed. I got to the next step. But I think if I continue to try to fight it, it's not going to happen. Give permission. And I had to really fight to give myself permission. So I implore everybody else, give yourself permission to feel like that. It will pass.
What about you, Amanda? What do you do when you're having a sad and unmotivated day?
When I'm having a moment, I just like Jennifer, I stop and I acknowledge that I'm feeling down, I'm feeling troubled. And then I usually, I have 3 animals. I have a dog and 2 cats, and I usually go walk the dog, to be honest. It gets me out of the house, get some fresh air and get some sunshine, and you know, throw a ball in a park for 15 minutes can really, it helps my mindset personally. If I can't get out and do that, then I usually call a family member. I've got quite a large family. So I stop and I take the time to check in on them, especially my older relatives, see how they're doing, you know, talk to the nieces and the nephews, and just really check in. And usually by the time I kind of get through all that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to sit back down at my desk and take on the next challenge. That's usually what I do.
And Dave, do you have anything else to offer in terms of what you do on a down and dark day?
Well, I want to completely agree with Amanda that dogs make everything better, in a therapeutic way. Like Jen said, you want to absolutely honor your feelings. You want to acknowledge how you're feeling. You know, a very wise man once said to me that sometimes I go to bed with problems, and when I wake up in the morning, it's no longer a problem. Sometimes it's just acknowledging where you are and then just allowing it to happen. Now, that being said, if there's some kind of significant history of depression or anxiety, then possibly calling a professional might be in order. You know, if it's consistently over days and weeks and months, outside of there being an external cause like, a global pandemic. Do not be afraid to reach out for help. I think that's incredibly important. And if there's any thoughts of harming yourself, then absolutely, by all means, get outside yourself for a second and make the call to someone you trust or a professional.
Right. And what about you, Rose?
I just would agree with everything that everyone has said.
Uh-huh.
I think when you have emotions, the worst thing you can do is try and avoid them because they're going to be there anyway. So I would just say, know that it's okay to feel everything you're feeling and it will pass.
So I'm just going to jump to a couple of more questions that we've received in the question box. We've received a few questions, and thank you in particular, Joel, for submitting your questions about the future of conferences and concert series. We've had a lot of interest in this topic in the questions that were pre-submitted for this webinar and also in our general webinar series survey. And so we will be delivering a specific webinar on this topic. And we're looking to do that maybe in the next couple of weeks. So what I would say is, given the fact that we don't have presenters or conference runners sitting on our panel today, that we may want to just press pause on those particular topics for today, but please know that your questions are being heard and they will be responded to. But we do have a question that got dropped in the box from Andrew, and it was a question that also came up in the survey and that just happens to be the final question on our agenda today. And the question is, we may be dealing with a long period in which people may be scared to attend concerts, even if the law permits it. So interested in hearing about people's visions for alternatives and how to look to the future. It's a big question, but I wonder if everybody wants to take a concluding 1 minute to sum up a positive thing that they see coming out of this, or maybe just a change-oriented thing that they see coming out of this. And maybe we can start with Matt.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday on our walk with our dog, and we have some author friends, children's book author friends locally, and there's a lot of stuff that is coming up because of this transition to online everything. There's a big discussion occurring about copyright. It's discussions that have been going on for years, but now they're getting thrust to the forefront about ownership, copyright, how to share things. Like it's very complex, and it's always been very complex. And I think that the fact that we're all the content creators, as it were, often get left out, or at least not taken care of as well as they should in this kind of hierarchy, this pyramid of the way things are with publishers and labels and all of the middlemen and streaming services, and now maybe online library services. So what I see as a silver lining positive thing is that this may force this discussion to happen in real time. It may force changes to occur in real time. Because it's one thing to complain about the amount of money Spotify is paying me, but knowing that I can go play a show down the road and make enough money to pay my bills, it's going to get moved to second on my list of things to be concerned about. Well, I'll tell you, if I can't do online shows to make a certain amount of money, the amount of money that I get from streaming is going to become my #1 priority. And I think authors are feeling that. People that work in TV and film are going to be feeling that, and I think songwriters are feeling that.
We have time for maybe one more answer or two more super brief answers to the question of how do we envision a future of shows. Anybody want to put their hand up and take this one? Rose, she's quick with the hand up.
Maintaining a really positive, forward thinking, like there's nothing that will replace the communion of us coming into a room together and creating things together and bringing people together for art and for music. And at this point, I think the question is very smart, but I'm also like, I really feel like I'm not going to let go of the faith that this is going to hit its peak and we're going to recover from it, and we're going to be okay, because we've spent years and years and years in close proximity with each other, healthy, and I just know that we're going to get back there. And so I feel like those of us who know that that community can't be replaced will be like, I think it's going to take a bit, but I think it's going to be okay. And maybe I'm crazy, but.
Anyone else? We got about a minute left. Anyone want to?
Yeah.
Amanda, okay, great.
Yeah, I think just to echo on what Rose said, I think as a community, a creative community, we are going to want to come together when this is done, and it's safe to do so. So I think that while there will be some people that will be a little apprehensive, I think a lot of people are going to be eager to get together and sing and dance and just be part of that group feeling, that love that we share through, you know, the bond of music. So I do think it's going to be a slow start, but I do think that everything is going to eventually come back around, and festivals are going to be up and running, tours are going to be going, shows will be sold out. It'll take a little bit of time, but I think the general public is going to jump on it faster than most people want to realize. That's what I think.
Well, on that super positive note, I think I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dave Sherman from the Road to Rehab, Amanda Power from Unison Benevolent Fund, Rose Cousins, beloved artist and hilarious person, playing a concert tonight in benefit of Club Passim and their fund to support musicians. Jennifer Leff, I'm owning that typo, Jennifer. I am so sorry. My bad. From MusiCares, just doing so much work. And Matt Sever for moderating this panel today. Matt the electrician. Please join us for our next webinar, which will be Friday. This not in 2 days, but in 9 days. And that will be on live streaming. How to do it. How to get paid for it, how to make it easy, how to connect with your fans. We have some great folks lined up. We have the National Arts Centre here in Canada lined up. We've got a line out on a couple of European guests. We have Chris Matthews, who was one of our official showcase artists this year. And we have Dan Mangan from Side Door Access. So it's going to be an awesome get together to talk about that. And please do fill out the webinar survey that you will link to as soon as you close this window. We appreciate you all. And we will see you out here in the wild, wild world web. Goodbye from Focal Alliance International.
Everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.